Hello and welcome back to Beetleclan. It's year 5, finally. I'm so excited that we've gone through 5 years, and I was worried that year 5 was not going to be very interesting because the rogues have left, any potential drama with our neighbor small clan is non-existent, and the clan is, pretty peaceful even with relationship and interpersonal dramas and conflicts going on. So thankfully, the game decided to save me the trouble of manufacturing some conflict by giving me a very, very intense story that kind of will just change the outcome of what I thought was gonna happen. Um, While there are fewer deaths than the previous year, there are still a pretty decent amount, and the clan has significantly shrunk. Still not to 2 pages, which is a little frustrating, but all fine. On a bit of a side note, you should be able to see it on screen, but every 5 years, I want to do a huge portrait that shows every member of the clan, which is gonna start to suck when we get to, hopefully year 10 we'll have more cats, but that's gonna suck. And I just want to show, daily life or whatever, so what you're seeing is what everyone looks like before year 6. But first, let's go to Starclan. The first death of the year, which happened on the first moon of the year, was Mordusk. She was killed in an accident that was genuinely an accident compared to a couple of the other, I'm doing air quotes, but you can't see it, accidents that we'll cover in a couple minutes. On a patrol with Troutpool, Hope Lily, Mudbreeze, and Addertail, they crossed a thunder path and a monster came out of nowhere, which forced them to scatter. She was the only one struck by the monster, which is unfortunate but also nice because sucks that there was a death, but I'd prefer one over the whole patrol, and her death marked a series of accidents that would befell the clan this entire year. I'm actually really frustrated that she died when she did because Mordusk has done so little with her life in Beetleclan. She lived her life being extremely supportive and was an excellent influence on the young cats around her, always trying to keep her fellow clanmates well taken care of. Her mission was helping with the kits before she passed away, keeping them in line as she was slowing down and was focusing more on becoming an elder and just helping out the youth as she was transitioning into staying more at camp. Sadly, Mordusk never got to have an apprentice, though I think she would have been a really great influence on them if she did. And she really loved helping out Root Whisker after Root Whisker's mate passed away previously. While not the next cat to die in the timeline, Milk Thistle is who we will cover next. He seemingly died in a sinkhole during a training patrol with his brother Mudbreeze and their 2 apprentices. His death was sad since another cat had died via a sinkhole earlier in the moon, but there was a message that really made me scratch my head. The cat to be originally trapped in the sinkhole was one of the apprentices, who we will talk about. Very excited to talk about them. And Milk Thistle hopped in to save them from the trouble. However, that apprentice managed to escape and leave him back to die. As he was fading away and joining Starclan, the apprentice glared at them with a malevolent glint in their eyes, and it was 100% murder. We'll cover potential whys when we get to who was doing the murdering, but it's just really unfortunate dominoes effect of all of these cats quickly dying one after another. Milk Thistle started the year recovering in the first moon and then helped the medicine cats go get herbs as a sign of respect and thanks. He really wasn't as troublesome as his personality suggests, and besides getting an injury on his tail last year, he was pretty non-problematic. In fact, when one of the apprentices lost their mentor, which we will cover again, he took over their training. Sadly, it was also the same moon that he passed away, so that mentorship was extremely short-lived. In Starclan, he's pretty upset. Milk Thistle was clever enough to know that his death was no mere accident before he passed away, but it was far too late to tell any cat, and he really wants the murderer to be punished for their actions. 2 moons after Milk Thistle's death, his apprentice Poppypaw died in another training accident. Poppypaw, along with her littermates, were the younger siblings of Milk Thistle, and his littermates, all of the survivors of that litter, had taken over the training of their younger siblings. Poppypaw was a daring kit that was apprenticed excitedly to a cat we'll talk about later. She was excited to hunt for the clan and carried forth this excitement in her first patrol, where she was frustrated that practicing hunting didn't go great. Even her charismatic and chipper attitude didn't keep her upset for too long. Just that next moon, her mentor died, and then her second mentor died, and she was given a third mentor. Even though Poppypaw should have been more upset, she was willingly given the other apprentices a pep talk, and even played a prank on Wet Ivy that was lighthearted and fun, and kept her busy. The next moon after Milk Thistle died, Poppypaw's new mentor fell into a sinkhole, another one, and thankfully survived, but was on the border of Starclan with a horribly broken back. She was frightened as they swore that they were pushed in, and the rest of the patrol wrote it off as them not being in their right mind. After her mentor's injuries, Poppypaw wanted to show them that she was in fact skilled and talented, and that having 3 mentors change so quickly didn't mean she hadn't learned anything from any of them. Sadly, while out on a patrol with her mom, Root Whisker, and her littermates, Poppypaw fell into yet another sinkhole. Her death was no accident, even though the patrol claimed that it was when they were reporting it to camp, and she is devastated and confused in Starclan. She should be more frustrated and upset, but she's just depressed knowing what happened after the fact. The next death is probably the saddest of the list. During the year, Troutpool and Heathtail had a new litter of kits. There were a total of 4 of them, and the Leafball and Leafbear cold left them sick the entire youth they had. Daughter Kit, their fun-loving girl, was the bossy leader of the litter, and both cared about and liked to push around her siblings. Both Daughter Kit and her sister Goose Kit got kitten cough in the chill of leaf fall. I've mentioned this before in other Clangen videos, but I personally interpret kitten cough just as common sickness that is worse for babies because they're weaker immune systems. This meant that unfortunately Daughter Kit couldn't really handle being sick that well, and was eventually killed by kitten cough despite her sister recovering from it. She was the only one of her siblings not to make it to apprenticehood, and her mother mourned her deeply. The next 3 deaths all happened together at the last moon of the year. Sand Pond was starting to feel a lot closer to his aunt Honey Eagle, and had a lot of pleasant conversations in the early year. He took over the main duties when Honey Eagle was busy mourning, and had his own morning and peaceful patrols out by himself, gathering tansy and other herbs, all by himself, with no help, no escorts, no nothing. In a really sweet moment, he watched over his younger brother Snowpaw, and they ended up talking about Starclan and dreams, and just having a bond between these two litters that didn't have as much connection as they could with their own litter mates. Sandpaw remained really distant from Starclan this year. He was undeniably angry at Honey Eagle for having a Starclan dream, and continued to wish and wait for an omen to be sent by Starclan to him personally. He's a perfectly good healer, but desperately wants to have Starclan reach out to him, and is just really confused why they didn't want to talk to him. Honey Eagle comforts him while they're out on patrol, letting him know that Starclan does in fact do as they want, and that if they aren't talking to him, it's nothing that he can do about it. The moon before the end of the year, Sandpaw got white cough and was struggling to think straight. He couldn't remember the name of herbs and was feeling really frustrated that the only thing that made him a good medicine cat was slowly slipping away from him. This frustration led him to desperation as he went out in the middle of a snowstorm to find herbs. His brother Mudbreeze and the warrior Rowan Glint went with him to keep him safe and to bring him back, but all three ended up just being trapped and freezing to death. Mudbreeze started the year with a unfortunate blow to his safety, as he was there when Mordusk died, then immediately got an apprentice the next moon, which should have been more exciting. His apprentice Honeypaw kept him very busy, and he often trained alongside Poppypaw and her mentors. He was really upset when Milk Thistle died and helped Hope Lily back to camp after she broke her back. One of the coolest things he did this year was organizing a stakeout of a badger set to address the danger. Mudbreeze really proved himself and showed exactly why he had earned his apprentice with his dedication and skill as a warrior. His apprentice ended up being the first to become warrior, and he was incredibly proud of her, especially because it was before she was 12 moons old. Mudbreeze later took over the teaching of his younger sister Wisteria Paw when her mentor was out of commission. He was also caught sharing prey with a kitty pet in need that was turned away by a patrol, and actually spent a lot of the year thinking about kitty pets. If he had survived, I would have accepted a kitty pet in and considered a potential romance or friendship with this kitty pet, but nothing really came of it. In Leaf Bear, Mudbreeze tossed a snake out of camp before it could attack anyone, and got a torn pelt while fighting against a dog with a patrol of Troutpool, Heathtail, Honeyfeather, Wisteria Leap, and Hornet Reed. Despite his injury, he still went out and helped hunt, and ended up taking shelter with Rowan Glint and Wet Ivy during another snowstorm. He then went out with Rowan Glint again to follow Milk Thistle's hunt for herbs and to just keep his brother safe. Rowan Glint's death really sucks because I had hyped him up for this Dark Forest storyline for potential drama and just kind of the direction I thought it was going, of like, we have this family in Beetleclan that'll have a bond to the Dark Forest. But it ended with nothing. He was perfectly a pleasant apprentice and warrior, having no drama and even a bit of a crush on Poppypaw while they were both young. It wasn't reciprocated, and even worse, he never got to tell her, and it just kind of ended awkwardly. Rowan Paw was apprenticed to Wet Ivy, and he was pretty nervous, needing a bit of coaxing from Hope Lily to even get out of the nursery in the first place. He shared with his mentor pretty immediately that he thought he was getting visions from Starclan, and ended up just keeping them to himself after Wet Ivy was openly concerned. The next moon he had a nightmare about a rushing river and grew fearful of tunnels when Wet Ivy wanted to teach him how to navigate through them, and just ended up derailing the entire patrol by refusing to do this part of the training. Rowan Paw was pretty childish and didn't pick up on the more strict and serious nature of his grandparents. He slept in late, slacked off from doing chores while playing games instead, and only knocked it off long enough to act brave in front of his brother Hornet Paw when they were watching bison together. Despite being childish and a bit of a slacker, he ended up earning his warrior name at 11 moons old and still became this childish warrior. Roland liked to explore the territory, and he ended up getting trapped in a snowstorm with a big hunting patrol. Alongside Root Whisker, Fishy Shadow, Addertail, Dancing Dapple, and Wet Ivy, they waited out the snowstorm for the coast to be clear. He was then trapped with Wet Ivy and Mudbreeze the next moon and ended the year in a third snowstorm with Mudbreeze and Sandpond, which just kind of was a bad streak for him. all of Leaf Bear, he was just trapped in snow, and it's kind of unfortunate that he passed. The last death of the year is one that I've avoided spoiling, aka the first of the murders, and that was Hairstar. He was the first of the 3 deaths and 1 major injury in the sinkholes, and lost all 9 of his lives in one go, just during the 3rd moon of the year. His death being a chain that killed both Milk Thistle and Poppy Paw was one that had me absolutely scratching my head, but we'll talk about that when we get to the murderer later in the video. For now, I want to express some of my frustration with Hairstar dying. He was a pretty bland leader, not bad, but also not super great. His motto was being peaceful and not taking too much territory, and while I did appreciate the peace, he wasn't particularly close to that many cats, and that left me very little to work with. The only cat that mourned him was Honey Eagle, who he went to a lot for Starclan guidance and keeping up with medical information in the clan. I think that she personally appreciated having a leader that was once a healer himself, and he appreciated her skills a lot more than maybe anyone else. Despite the fact that Beetleclan was thriving and managed to overcome basically all difficulties that they faced, Hairstar had little to no bonds with other cats and did very little to push along a story, which, is not terrible when I think a lot of the other cast was better. It's just I have nothing to work with him, really. He never showed romantic interest in any cat besides Heathtail, which I would have gladly accepted if it ended in cheating or Polly or anything, but absolutely nothing came about it, despite the fact that I had the setting for cheating on, and I think I did year 5 after the Polly update came out, so it was available, but nothing happened, and I just kind of desperately wish that the first leader had some familial connections to the clan and to leave a bloodline behind, because it's just kind of sad that he served for a little over 4 years and that his bloodline ends with him. Personally, I really could have seen him with Mordusk, and the fact that those two didn't end up together is a little sad, but what are you gonna do about it? With Hairstar dead, we do have a new leader and our first official animatic of Beetleclan, which I was very excited to do. So let's go into that. The death of Hairstar was a shocking incident, and he was deeply mourned by everybody in the clan. As the warrior code dictates, the new leader left as soon as possible with Honey Eagle close in tow. The way that the old Alliance territory spoke to Starclan was through the Star Sand. In an underground cave, there was a patch of sand that sparkles in the moonlight and is just warm to the touch, even in the middle of Leaf Bear. Medicine cats lay in the sand to speak with their ancestors, their fur glittering with the small bits of sparkling sand, and leaders are buried in the sand to re-emerge with their new name. Honey Eagle led Troutpool down through the tunnel, both quiet and stoic. Together they buried Troutpool and poured the sand over her, submerging her in this warmth so that she could greet their ancestors. She woke up in the tall grasses of Starclan and followed a glowing star where the grassland became sky. The star splintered into the sound of falling rain in front of Troutpool and appeared as a cat, an old friend, Raindrift. He smiled and pressed his nose to her head, giving her a life for instinct. She knew best, and when she felt something was off, she should listen. Raindrift left and was replaced by a face that made Troutpool's heart ache. Her son Spot Ghost purred deeply and offered his mother a life for determination. She must see through her actions to the bitter end. Spot Ghost ducked away, and Shadowskip pranced up, dipping his head in greeting. He touched his nose to Troutpool's head and gave her a life for bravery. Fight on and push on, no matter how difficult. Shadowskip walked away with Flintfleck coming up behind, mewing a gentle hello. He gave Troutpool a life for unity, encouraging her to keep the clan together and make universal decisions. Flintfleck nodded as Mudbird and Dusty Bee approached. The elderly cats looked more youthful and happy than they had in their life, and Mudbird gave Troutpool a life for integrity, keep her morals, and be honest about her choices. Dusty Bee gave her life for resilience, encouraging an unending withstanding and toughness to see through her decisions. Blackstripe followed after the two elderly cats and gave Troutpool a warm smile. He offered her a life for clear sight and hoped that she would not be blinded in her judgment and to be perceptive of life around her. After the old medicine cat walks away, there comes a familiar and friendly face. Mordusk smiles and offers Troutpool a life for farsightedness. She should plan for the future and look beyond the easy answer for the hard truth in life. As the last cats moved away, the last figure approached. Hairstar looked exhausted and prideful. He greeted Troutpool with a smile and pressed his nose to her forehead, giving her her final life of tireless energy. He wished she would use this energy to stay vigilant and care for Beetleclan. Starclan hailed Troutpool with her new name, Troutstar, as they faded, Hairstar remained. He sent Troutstar back to Beetleclan with a warning that her first year as a leader would be a trial, so that she could prove her worth. The deaths and injuries were not an accident, and each life she was given were skills that she would need to deal with this conflict. Waking up, Troutstar was back in the star sand, and Honey Eagle perked up. She had never seen the leader ceremony before, and was thankful that Troutstar actually got 9 lives. On the way back to camp, Troutstar kept this warning to herself, unsure of what to do. Speaking of Troutstar, let's check in on how she's been doing this year. Before becoming leader, she punished one of the warriors for breaking the warrior code and was dealing with the irritation for that warrior. They also ended up becoming the mentor of Wisteria Paw and became the first cat in Beetleclan to have 3 apprentices, particularly by the end of the year, 3 fully trained apprentices. When Hairstar died, Troutstar prolonged going to the Star Stand out of concern. She would announce her choice for deputy when returning back home and ended up making the choice of Wet Ivy. I think that she wouldn't choose her mate or children out of concern of bias, and Root Whisker, the only other available warrior, has taken up a bit of a special position in the clan, making her opt out for the position of deputy. What Ivy has been really supportive and very thankful of his presented opportunity, so I think it was a good choice. Something that was planned before suddenly becoming leader was a second litter of kits. Chester named some of them after flowers that Hairstar had told them about during their years of knowing each other. She thinks that it came at a bit of a bad time, but she and Heathtail followed through for a hope of some normalcy. The words Hairstar told her and her 9 lives still weigh heavily on her. She has suspicions about the murderer, knowing that they are in fact her own clanmates. But she's not really sure if she believes the warrior that was injured in one of the accidents. She's afraid that she'll fumble with this trial and make all the wrong decisions. That is actually the first thing that we're going to be voting on as a community to influence the plot. In the comments, there should be a link to a community post with the situation about whether or not Troutstar will catch this murderer before year 6 starts. So if you have an opinion by the end of the video, recommend checking that out. Finally achieving his dream, Wet Ivy has become the deputy. He's got an apprentice in Rowanpaw, and then later in the year, one of Troutstar's daughters, Goosepaw. He also believed himself to be a part of a prophecy, but I actually don't think he is, aside from maybe being tied to Troutstar's prophecy of being the leader that we saw in year 2 or year 3. Even though he wasn't a particularly good teacher, Wet Ivy made up for it by being a really good mediator and settling all of the conflicts between his clanmates with ease. He handled an argument between the brothers Hornetpaw and Rowanpaw nicely, and cared deeply enough about his apprentice to actively worry and think about Rowanpaw outside of just what felt normal. He was very proud of his apprentice when they became a warrior and ended up moving on to learn how to fish with other warriors. When the 2 apprentices, Snowpaw and Wisteriapaw, were upset and confused by not becoming warriors yet, even though they were 12 moons old, Wet Ivy comforted them and encouraged their training, which ended up having both of them become warriors during the next moon. After getting trapped in 2 different snowstorms, Wet Ivy earned his 3rd apprentice and became the 2nd warrior in Beetleclan to have a 3rd apprentice. He had a status of, quote, reflecting on a past lesson to make a crucial decision, unquote, the same moon that he got Goosepaw as an apprentice, and I think he was pretty worried that he wasn't that good of a teacher last time and is really trying to make up for it now. Unfortunately, as we'll see with Goosepaw, her first patrol was kind of a disaster. Honey Eagle stressed a lot this year. She was really frustrated that she was the only medicine cat, then got an apprentice that she hated, and now that apprentice is dead and she has to get a new one. On top of that, she lost Hairstar, who was her closest friend, and she was out of commission a lot for mourning his loss. Honey Eagle tried to push forward through this grief, but it took a while for her to realize that she could still function without Hairstar around. I think that there must be a lot of confusion and fear for clan cats that have lived their entire lives with leaders only for them to pass away, and she was feeling the full weight of that experience. A lot of the deaths were merely accidents, and she couldn't heal or save any of her clanmates from them, which left Honey Eagle really frustrated and disappointed and just upset in her own capabilities. On top of that, losing Sandpawn just at the end of the year forced her to take another apprentice. Whorehound Paw is a promising young apprentice that feels already pretty comfortable in the medicine den, but it's sadly too soon for her to truly get over the loss of her nephew and apprentice Sandpond. Whorehound Paw was the only Tom and Troutstar and Heathtail's second litter, and was inspired to train in the medicine den after the loss of his sister-daughter Kit. He's quite wise and definitely also thought that the death of the second medicine cat was a sign for him to step up and be a little bit more responsible, mostly just because he wants to keep the number of healers high, and it's a little impersonal, his decision. As a kid, Whorehound Kit was quiet and lonesome, sticking to himself and listening to the stories told to him by the warriors of the fallen cats who have been in Beetleclan before him. He's pretty solitary and only really had a friend in the warrior Snowmoth who got the Kit out of his comfort zone to learn a few things. Sadly, I would have had made Snowmoth his mentor if he wasn't already a medicine cat, and I'm still trying to see how the relationship between Whorehound Paw and Honey Eagle is going to shake out. Heathtail is our one and only, quote, senior warrior, unquote, even though he's not even 8 years old yet. He's earned his second apprentice in Snowmoth and often trained alongside Wisteria Leap and Troutstar during the first half of the year. During Greenleaf, he sprained his paw and was out of commission for 3 whole moons, which he might have been doing conveniently to help out Troutstar, as she was fully coming in to the nursery and being a leader, and just in general needed a lot of support. With a second litter of kits, Heathtail was a bit tense about jumping back into being a mentor, and even found teaching Snowpaw like a little bit annoying. It took a bit of time for him to get Snowpaw to be a warrior, and he was just pretty eager to learn how to go fish alongside other warriors instead of basically babysitting. And he's gotten a lot closer to Wet Ivy and has just really been enjoying the fishing that they've been doing. Something that is a bit interesting with Heathtail is that he was sharing prey with a rogue that was chased away by a patrol later. I think that he's pretty friendly at heart, and felt bad that there was a cat in need. None of this is really something that I want to be punished, especially when there aren't any conflicts with rogues or loners or kitty pets or anything going on. It's why if I mention it that like a Beetleclan cat is talking to an outsider, it's like fine by me unless there's other factors going on. Like last year, I can't remember who it was, but some apprentice got yelled at for talking to a rogue because there was actively conflict going on. But, you know, they're at a time of peace right now, so it's not really that big of an issue. Heathtail also ends the year out earning his third apprentice in his daughter Roanpaw, And a small detail that I want to mention is that Troutstar most definitely gave her deputy and her mate, aka her trusted warriors, new apprentices over the younger warriors because she really just can't trust them right now. Hopefully, if there are new apprentices next year, that we will have one of these younger warriors become a mentor, but for now, it's just kind of the trusted people. Root Whisker probably had the worst year ever for her. After losing her mate and 2 of her kits last year, I was expecting something a little bit more tame and happy. Instead, 3 of her first litter are dead, meaning that Addertail, her daughter, is the last of 6 cats in that first litter, and she's barely just 2 years old, so that sucks. Of the second litter, 1 of them is already dead, and she's pretty worried that she's going to outlive all of her kits, which is not a fear completely unfounded. Of all of the warriors that could have gotten apprenticed this year, Root Whisker was not one of them. She oversaw a lot of training, being there when any cat kind of needed an extra set of paws in training or just a mentor was unavailable for any reason. It gave her a reason and just a chance to talk to her kits and make sure that they were improving nicely without being too overbearing. She was taking care of the apprentices during a patrol when Poppy Paw died, and she personally blames herself for the death of her daughter. In between her normal duties, Root Whisker came to terms with Heatherbird's death and felt a lot better caring for their kits and living on in memory. She's been pretty focused on mourning her losses that she faces each year and has taken a more permanent position in camp as a nursery queen slash camp tender, since there are no kits currently as the year ends in the nursery. She's transitioning into just taking care of everything, and it's great because her role has already greatly improved. The fact that she's more dedicated to the camp and kitten caretaking, and she saved Roan Kit from drowning, which is a big thumbs up for me, and that she's doing pretty good at her job. Towards the end of the year, Wet Ivy actually confessed his feelings to Root Whisker, and she was very flattered and even really likes him back, but isn't ready to start a new relationship. Thankfully, Wet Ivy is a good and understanding guy, so the two are remaining friends for the time being, but I do hope that they end up together because Root Whisker kind of deserves a happy ending. Yeah, I do hope they end up together. Hope Lily was the mistake in the murder plan, the one cat that wasn't supposed to survive. She took over the training of Poppy Paw after Hairstar and Milk Thistle, and ended up remaining the mentor, though only in name. At the beginning of the year, she was just proud to see her kids become apprentices and just get out of the nursery to continue her regular warrior duties. She had even negotiated with her mother so that she would not be a mentor for a while. However, she perfectly pleasantly stepped up to take up care of Poppy Paw after 2 completely upsetting accidents. We'll talk about what happened more specifically when we talk about that other cat that we keep hinting at, but Hope Lily was caught in a sinkhole after being pushed by that cat. She has continually blamed that person over and over, but no one believes her or trusts her really. The broken back has left her with this huge, kind of difficult to avoid looking at scar, and was just a bad enough injury that she really wasn't in her right mind. Afterwards, she was on enough poppy seeds to deal with the pain that she just wasn't thinking straight, and she just kept clinging to and echoing a hollow accusation. The injury has left Hope Lily very paranoid and just frustrated beyond belief. She's tried to step back into being a warrior after her injury and recovery, but she knows that her clanmates' gazes are off with her. Her trust with them has waned, and she's upset that not even her own mother, Troutstar, has been taking her very seriously. Fishy Shadow started the year with a dream from Starclan, but it was actually from the Dark Forest. No one was really able to understand this vision, a vision that was also had by Rowan Paw, and he's kind of worried about whether or not he believes it was real himself. Instead, he quickly got an apprentice in his niece Dancing Paw and just completely forgot about it. Most of his year was spent balancing being a mentor for the first time and trying to be a good warrior. Fishy Shadow helped keep watch over a badger set on the territory, which he was the one to find in the first place. He was happy to join in hunting patrols after Dancing Paw became a warrior, and he just kept his patrols fresh and exciting with spooky stories. Fishy Shadow was a pretty chill guy with a tame year, and besides his little weird dream, he was mostly just training his apprentice and hunting and hanging out. I wish he did a little bit more, but it's cool, it's fine. He doesn't really have an opinion on what's happening with his sister. Like, he's worried because that's his sister and littermate, but he is kind of taking direction from his mom, and the fact that Troutstar doesn't seem to be giving too much time and effort into Hope Lily's concerns. So he's just like, okay, whatever mom says, and is really taking a back seat. Addertail has quickly become one of my favorite cats in Beetleclan. She started the year literally breaking the warrior code, which absolutely forced me to make a Beetleclan warrior code and find out what she did. Turns out she just ate prey instead of bringing it back to camp, and Troutpool punished her, which started them on a really bad foot at the beginning of the year. Then she immediately got on a good foot by saving Rowan Kit from drowning. Outertail became a mentor to Hornet Paw and ended up spending a lot of time being both an excellent mentor and an excellent warrior. She shows the apprentices Hornet Paw and Rowan Paw Bison on the territory, and later helps Rowan Paw and Dancing Paw learn how to navigate tunnels. While out gathering herbs with fellow warriors, Addertail was the one to recognize cranberries and was able to bring them back to camp and earn favor with the medicine cats. She was also out hunting with Wet Ivy, Root Whisker, Fishy Shadow, Rowan Glint, and Dancing Dapple when they were all caught in a snowstorm, and kept an eye on the other warriors to ensure their safety, comforting them and being a warm source during that sad time. Unfortunately, she took the death of her brother Sandpawn really hard and was trying to bargain with Starclan to bring him back. She's the last of her littermates and is being pretty protective over her younger siblings. Honeyfeather is our murderer. No sugarcoating at all. She directly killed 3 cats and injured one of them, 2 of which were her own siblings. She grew up in the shadow of her sister and littermate Poppy Paw and really hated it. On top of that, she was ambitious and grew up during a time where Hairstar was in and out of the medicine cat den, and Troutpool was a continual emotional wreck due to the deaths of friends and family. All of this frustrated a young Honeykit, and she didn't really get to be able to put any plans into place until she was an apprentice. Honeypaw was apprenticed to her older brother Mudbreeze and was trained alongside Poppypaw and Hairstar. Unfortunately, her first patrol really sucked and frustrated her so much that she wanted to punish Hairstar, but that resulted in all of his deaths, which she feels proud about. I think Honeypaw's original plan was to weaken Hairstar and to get Troutpool kicked out of her deputy position, but that didn't happen and she just rolled with the punches. Milk Thistle was dragged down after saving Honeypaw and hopefully was pushed when no one was looking. As an apprentice and capable of acting and having the ability to change and sway opinions around her, she was able to keep the innocence and keep flipping the questioning on Hope Lily whenever she was accused. Given the amount of issues based around sinkholes, Beetleclan was a lot more tense around the sandy parts of their territory, which is fully cemented with Poppypaw's death. Even though Honeypaw was elsewhere at the time, she had set up one last trap in hopes of killing Poppypaw, and it was successful. After Poppypaw's death, Honeypaw just sat back and watched and learned from Hope Lily that no other cat was going to be taking her seriously, and just had the time to chill around until she became a warrior. One thing that absolutely hurts my soul is that Root Whisker thinks Honeyfeather's loyalty will lead them through anything, and it just makes me think, Honeyfeather has no loyalty to Beetleclan. She killed the previous leader, she killed 2 cats, she injured another one. It's not great. And the next time after that she was feeling proud was the same moon that Mudbreeze got attacked by a dog, which might have also been something that she let happen. Not sure how devious she is now that she's a warrior. So I mentioned it before when I was talking about Troutstar, but I do want to do more community voting based on choices, and this is the first one that I thought would be interesting. So do you think that Honeyfeather should be caught for her crimes? Do you think that she should continue to get away with these crimes? There should be a link in the pinned comment, or you can find it in my community tab. I will go into more explanation on that post of details that I want to do, but yeah, the whole thing that could be really interesting about year 6 is whatever Honeyfeather's up to. Snowmoth was apprenticed to Heathtail and really hoped that Heatherbird was watching with pride as he was apprenticed. His first patrol was with his sister Wisteria Paw and their mentors, having them navigate dark tunnels, which he was pretty bad at compared to his sister. Despite not having that many quarrels with his mentor Heathtail, the two just don't really get along, and Snowpaw even blatantly ignored his mentor while Heathtail was injured. During that time when Heathtail was nursing this brain paw and greeting his newborn kits, Snowpaw spent his time with his older brother Sandpawn. They talked about Starclan and gathered herbs together until Root Whisker was able to take over as a temporary mentor. Once Heathtail was back to his mentor duties, Snowpaw had a really scary moment with red berries that he decided not to interact with and ended up reporting to the patrol of their potential danger. Who knows if they were actually deathberries, but one near-death experience is enough to get him to be a little bit more careful. Of this generation of warriors, Snowmoth and his siblings, particularly his sister Wisteria Leap, were the last 2 to become warriors. They all, of the 6, 2 were at 11, 2 were at 12, and 2 were at 13, which was him and Wisteria. Unfortunately, he was dealing with a really bad headache that then turned into green cough immediately after he recovered from the headache, meaning that he was just mostly out of commission after becoming a warrior and still is. And he's still really suffering from being sick and is just bummed out by the death of his older brother. Which, yeah, but cool name. I like his name a lot. Before becoming an apprentice, Wisteria Paw was very nervous to become one and to become a warrior in the future. During her apprentice ceremony, she got Troutpool as her mentor and was very frustrated that her mother Heatherbird was not there to watch it happen. On her first patrol, she and her brother Snowpaw struggled to navigate tunnels, and she was very glad that he was the only one to be there when she messed up and face planted right into him. Troutstar decided to hold a training session particularly for her, teaching Wisteria Paw how to hide in tall grass, and she had a great time, which made up for how quickly Troutstar was then unavailable with her newborn kits. It was then that Wisteria Paw was given to her mother Root Whisker to be trained, and that was the very rough patrol when Poppy Paw passed away. And just after that, Wisteria Paw tripped and almost sprained her paw, but ended up only really bruising her pride, which was just kind of kicking her while she was down. All of the struggles with her mentor being unavailable and her sister dying left her feeling just frustrated and behind on her training. When Rowan Kit fell into the river, Wisteria Paw tried to save her, but Root Whisker ended up being the one to snatch her up out of the water, and Wisteria Paw just felt a little too inadequate. Finally, at 13 moons old, Wisteria Leap earned her warrior name and was honored for her devotion to the clan. As a warrior, she stopped a hunting patrol from catching a sick rabbit and ended up getting a running nose that turned into white cough. She's currently in the med den with Snowmoth and is just trying to keep him entertained and happy, as he's just too upset about Sandpawn's death. Hornet Reed was apprenticed to Addertail and was immediately interested in being a hunter and catching prey. When his mentor tried to show him bison on the territory, he was pretty scared and wanted to run away, but his brother Rowanpaw put on a brave face to protect him. The two brothers often patrolled with each other and their mentors and got into a couple fights and bickering, which left Rowanpaw's mentor Wet Ivy and his mentor often trying to stop them and keep them on track. During another patrol, Hornet Paw and his sister Dancing Paw trained in tunnels near camp and had a lot of fun honing their skills together. He was later given the name Hornet Reed and honored for his commitment. His first patrol out with his siblings, where all three of them discovered a little cave, was really fun, and they just wanted to explore and be together. He's also the cat to spot the weird rabbit that Wisteria Leap warned not to eat, and he really took her warning to heart. Plus, he's got a teeny tiny little crush on her, which is really sweet on his side, but she does not reciprocate and doesn't even like him as a person. Not even just romantically, just doesn't like him. Currently, Hornet Reed is in the med den with a sprained paw, which he's pretty frustrated about because he's just kind of unable to do anything. He wanted to go out and help Rowan Glint, thinking that he could have saved his brother's life if he was there, but his sister Dancing Dapple was pretty forceful about his recovery. She is mostly making sure that he's grieving his losses properly, now that Rowan Glint has passed away, and it's just making sure that he's healing his sprain and not being too ambitious. Dancing Dapple is next, and she was apprenticed to her uncle Fishy Shadow and was very excited to find out the best ways to help the clan. She was also the heartthrob of the same moon that all of the apprentices were 6 moons old and became apprentices, which I think is very silly. Dancing Paw really gets a lot of practice in with not only her mentor but also the help of Root Whisker and Hope Lily. She also had training sessions to teach her how to hide in the tall grass, and really wasn't that good at avoiding detection. Dancing Paw was less frustrated about her and Honey Paw's mentors failing to teach them, and she even winked playfully at Honey Paw when they headed back to camp. She ended up training with Honey Paw for the next few moons, and felt that she was pretty behind, even though she didn't initially mind missing out on a couple training sessions. As a warrior, she was honored for her passion, particularly when she was practicing her own training in her free time. Dancing Dapple had one moon where she was the victim of a prank, finding a thorn in her nest, but she found it before she could get scratched, and I think that might have been Honey Paw trying to not play a prank, but actually be a little rude. She was later caught in a snowstorm and comforted those around her to make sure that they were all safe. To end the year, she fought off a small dog with Fishy Shadow and Root Whisker, making her just a very fierce protector. She's been using that protective nature to keep an eye on her brother Hornet Reed and her two aunts, Rowan Paw and Goose Paw. Rowan Paw was born a little bully that didn't want to grow up at all. She liked to cause some drama and mischief between her siblings and just give her parents a heart attack whenever she was getting into trouble. Notoriously, she fell into a nearby river when escaping the clan camp and was rescued by both Wisteria Leap and Root Whisker. Despite being a little bully, Roan Kit's biggest soft spot was her sister Goose Kit, and she was almost always worried about her whenever she was sick. Roan Kit got a pretty bad headache, but continued to play and then called her older brother Fishy Shadow Stinky, which will always get a good laugh out of me. She's also spent most of her time showing off to Wisteria Leap that she was hunting bugs and pretending to hunt mice and just asking for any tips from the warrior that tried to save her. While I think Wisteria Leap feels a little inadequate from not being able to save Roan Kit, I think Roan Kit doesn't care, and she's still like, yeah, you're my cool older friend. When Daughter Kit passed away, she ended up telling a very fond story at her sister's funeral and ended the year becoming an apprentice to her father Heathtail. She's become cold, but despite that, she's still pretty empathetic to Goosepaw's injuries and needs. On the patrol with their mentors, she crashed with her sister into a hole, and the two ended up having to fight their way out of the tunnel, which left her limping back to camp, but mostly uninjured. Goose Kit almost immediately got a running nose after being born, which turned her into a bit of an attention seeker because of just being sick in general. She ended up annoying Dancing Paw when her niece was trying to practice hunting, and spent the next moon pestering older cats to play with them. Right after recovering from her running nose, Goose Kit got kitten cough and immediately wished cats would stop babying her. Goose Kit ended up having trouble sleeping through the night while she was sick, and always was awake in time to say hello to the Dawn Patrol, watching them excitedly from her spot in the medicine den. During all of that time in camp and with Honey Eagle and Sandpond, she ended up becoming interested in clan history, and that was on top of having this lure to the Dark Forest, which is like fine. I thought we would go one litter of this family without it, but you know, it's fine. When Daughter Kit died, Goose Kit was frustrated and upset, asking older cats how kittens were made, and just really hoping that she could be reunited with her sister, who died of the same illness that she had recovered from just fine. To end the year, Goosepaw was apprenticed to the deputy Wet Ivy and became a loving cat. Despite being only an apprentice, she was nervous about being a warrior and also pretty excited about going out with Grandpa. When out on their first patrol, the sisters fell into a tunnel and Goosepaw was bitten by a badger that they nearly fell on top of. She's still in the med den with this bite wound, but is spending more time reassuring Ronepaw that she's fine and then she is needing to be comforted herself or recover, really. And that is Beetleclan at the end of year 5. So thanks for watching. If you want to have an influence on what the direction that the story is going, feel free to check out the community post. Again, link should be in the pinned comment, or you can just go into my channel and go into my community tab. Also, the year 5 special is going to be out soon, in the next couple of weeks. I'm working on that to give myself time for the year 6 voting thing to go through. So feel free, if you want to see more about these characters and see them drawn as humans, which is fun, feel free to look out for that. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I absolutely cannot wait to see what happens next. I'm very excited. So thanks for stopping by. Feel free to pop over and do some voting. And yeah, just